Hello, I'm Michael Fair, Chief Revenue Officer for PiKNiK and one of the engagement managers for ESPA. My background has historically been focused on the sales and marketing of technology services with a particular emphasis on indirect sales channels and partnering. One of the major goals of the ESPA program is to emphasize the importance of marketing to and acquiring actual end users that store their data on the Filecoin ecosystem. I will be covering the various strategies that are required for storage providers to focus on in order to be successful sales organizations that effectively compete with existing Web 2 storage providers for the attention of enterprise end users. It's a lot of hard work and takes a material investment in time and money in order to successfully sell to end users. One of the major goals of the program is not to just simply mine Filecoin. It's really to understand how to sell to end users and really enhance the value of the whole ecosystem through that process. We'll be covering an overview of the various business models and marketplaces that are generally available to the market, as well as some that are unique to the Filecoin network. Successful enterprise storage providers must actively acquire end users rather than just passively process inbound storage requests on an ad hoc basis. Right? Again, the emphasis is on making the investment in order to attract those end users. Create your own demand is really the key here. Marketing strategies require significant upfront investment, including dedicated marketing budget and staff. So when you're starting your business, you really want to really think through, what can I invest in sales and marketing, because it's vital ultimately to the long-term success of your company in order to build a pipeline of reliable storage deals. Sales strategies can either be direct strategies or indirect strategies or some combination of those. Ultimately, the value of the Filecoin network is enhanced by competing with existing Web 2 storage providers, and those are the ones that have the customers today, right? So you have a value proposition where you can provide material cost savings relative to those incumbent providers, as well as providing some unique characteristics and benefits such as portability and immutability. Your emphasis should be on those unique aspects of storing on Filecoin. Customers will be willing to pay for those unique aspects of the service. Here are a couple of quotes from Protocol Labs with this emphasis, right? So the goal of all participants should be to get real paying demand for the goods that the network produces. This is a key to a thriving economy that can operate with little or no subsidies. In the long term, the Filecoin network must be a protocol where demand from clients is so strong that providing storage is still profitable with little or no block rewards. In the financial sections, you're going to see how block rewards will decrement and decrease over time. So it's very important to also enhance the revenues from those rewards with actual fiat dollars. Those will continue to decrease, and we'll go through those in the economic sections. It's important to note that marketplaces and ecosystems are becoming increasingly important for distribution of anything sold as a service. Here's a quote from Jay McBain, who is an analyst that I follow closely at Forrester Research. He states, "Nothing in the world is binary. By the end of this decade, 1/3 of the B2B tech industry, estimated to be about $7 trillion by the end of the decade, will flow through resale, which is down from 64% today. 1/3 will go through marketplaces, which are mostly very nascent today, and mostly through subscription and consumption. And 1/3 will flow through direct sales." It is important to plan to participate in all three of these motions of direct and indirect and marketplaces, which form, marketplaces are a form of indirect sales channels, but really a combination of all these three is important to drive diversity with your income and to source end users. You've seen this slide before, but as a reminder of the economics of delivering service on the Filecoin ecosystem, the economics are really a combination of traditional revenue and cost associated with Web 2 storage that all providers have today, and the unique crypto-economic aspects of the Filecoin ecosystem. So again, in summary, the revenue is made up of any fees that you can charge to end users, right? So you should be charging in US dollars and euros, whatever currency you traditionally operate in, for the services, right? As well as the block rewards times the fill price. That will make up your revenue. Your costs are going to be determined from a combination of the cost to deliver the service as well as the sales and marketing costs. So you've got hardware costs, sales and marketing costs, your labor, your power, your corporate expenses, your floor space, right? As well as interest to borrow fill if you so choose to operate within that. So there are various charges that you can control and those that you really can't control, right? So you can charge, the fees that you charge to end users is completely up to you and really a function of what the market can bear there. Your corporate expenses, your sales and marketing expenses, your labor, your decision whether or not to borrow fill, which will depend on whether you're paying interest costs. Your interest rates are typically negotiable to a certain extent. They're relatively high now. I believe over time they will decrease. So those are all costs that you as a storage provider can control. Other costs you really cannot control, right? The whole mathematics associated with block rewards over time, we can project those over time, but really there's a lot of variables to those, and there's nothing that we can do individually as service providers to affect what the block rewards are. The price of fill is not directly something we can affect either. It's best to make conservative assumptions around that as to how that'll change over time. Hardware costs are somewhat negotiable. There's actually short supply chain issues right now for some of the equipment. Power is negotiable as well, but in general, those tend to be sometimes regulated by individual states. And your floor space costs are somewhat negotiable, but again, tend to fall within a certain narrow band. And also as a note, collateral is not considered actually an operating cost because you get the collateral back at the end of the sealing period. So it's really something that's really a cost it's an indirect cost in that you have an opportunity cost with that money associated with the collateral for storage, but it's not a direct cost. Note that each of the different sales distribution strategies has unique sales and marketing expenses as well as timing associated with them. The goal of the next section is to dive into a little bit deeper dive into each of these different sales distribution concepts and discuss the nuances of each relative to each other. Here are the high-level strategies, again, associated with the details as to how to go to market to sell storage-related services. Most storage providers engage in combinations of direct and indirect strategies. Marketplaces are really a form of indirect strategy and a source of leads for direct sales. In general, most storage providers will employ a combination of these sales strategies. So, programs can either be direct or indirect or a combination, right? A channel program is how your company will recruit, enable, and engage with third-party distribution partners that sell your services, and I'll go into more details shortly. Direct sales is pretty obvious. It's the in-house sales team that interacts with and acquires end users. These are your employees that are focused on direct sales. Indirect sales can be a form of, two major different types of indirect sales strategies. Agency is where you're going to market with your company's brand and you're billing the end user and you pay commissions to agents. If they're the ones that have the relationship and you're paying them to bring you in to handle the storage needs of their customers. Resale is when you're going to market with a managed service provider, with a value-added reseller, and they're using their brand and they're marking up and reselling your service. They're handling all the billing to the end users, and they receive discounts in lieu of commissions. Each sales strategy has various pros and cons, as well as varying impacts on timing. The best approach is often a hybrid approach that includes aspects of both direct and indirect channels. A mix of strategy will vary depending on the segment, the products, and the verticals, as well as your geography and goals and how fast you want to grow. There are pros and cons with each strategy. With the indirect channels, selling through partners is often a strategy that you can really get channel partners really anywhere in the world, right? Small markets, large markets, it's very difficult to staff in those areas, right? So it's important if through distribution channels, you can get much wider distribution and find partners that have customers in virtually any market in the country. What you're doing is you're leveraging the existing existing relationships with the channel partners. You don't have to forge those directly yourself with the end users. You have to invest the time to recruit the channel partners, but they're the ones that have ultimately the downstream customers. They often will be bundling services with their own partner capabilities, right? So your product does not have to stand alone. The cons of an indirect channel is that they often can be expensive over time, particularly with the agency programs where you have to make passive payments to partners for deal duration. Many partners will require you to pay residual commissions as long as they are billing, as long as you as a service provider are billing the end user, they expect to get paid for that. There's also material training requirements. These companies will not know much about your services today. It's a very competitive marketplace. There are literally hundreds of storage providers out there. Selling through Filecoin infrastructure, you've got some unique capabilities that should break through the noise out there. But again, it requires training to explain those nuances so that the channel partners can understand them. And you don't have any control over the commitment level or the behavior of sales teams. These are not your employees. They do not work for you. They will go often to partners that pay them the most or that help them the most or may even bring them leads and things like that. So, they may not be that loyal to you over the short period of time. The goal is to create that loyalty over a long period of time so that you are their go-to provider for storage services. Direct sales channels are really, you have much more control over the partner and the behavior and the results of the sales efforts. Those are your employees, that you can focus them on what you want to sell. And where you want to sell. But you also have a very limited geography. It's very expensive to staff these channels, and you've got to hire the staff, you've got to pay their benefits, you've got to train them. There's often higher churn associated with direct sales reps that often will go to wherever the shiny object is out there, and someone that's willing to pay them more. It's also very, very difficult, just to emphasize this, to staff in every market in the country. Most service providers will tend to staff in what they call the NFL cities only, and then the minor markets are really left without any sales presence. And that's why a direct and an indirect combined strategy often works. Also with direct sales, your product must stand alone, right? There's really no other, unless you have other partnering motions, there's really no way for you to bundle your service with other products out there, whereas many of the indirect partners will often bundle multiple different services that they're reselling. I want to focus now on agent partners, which are essentially brokers of technology. They do not take ownership of the delivery of the service, but instead they focus on selling technology through their relationships. They effectively operate as trusted advisors to their customers. So here are a list of the various different flavors of indirect partners within agency. So technology solutions brokers or distributors are very large entities that are national or even global distributors of various technologies. So they often have over 250 different service providers, and they sell everything from voice and data to security services, UCaaS and contact center services, cloud services, including compute and storage. So any one of these may have, 5 to 10 or 20 different types of storage providers. Some of them may focus only on storage. Some may only sell storage as a part of their offering. These often have 5,000 or more different sub-agents that operate underneath them and sell services out in the geographies out there. They operate under agency and they act as an aggregator of these capabilities. Filecoin storage providers will contract with and they pay the technology solutions broker for sales. The Filecoin solutions provider will contract the end user, they will bill the end user, and they will support the end user. The technology solutions broker does not typically sell to the end user. The sub-agents or the selling partners are the ones that sell to the actual end users and have the relationships. They sell underneath those technology solutions providers, and they receive the commissions from the solutions broker for all the services sold. And they have a contract with the solutions broker. You as the storage provider will have the contract with the solutions broker as well. Those agents have the relationships with the end users, and they're responsible for the ongoing relationship and the support of the customer, right? So they will co-sell with you. They will help renew the customer. They will upsell the customer for more service. They will be an escalation point, and they can also help with collecting payments, often if you have a receivables issue. Referral partners are another type of partner out there that often refers but does not sell the end user for you, the storage provider. They're not typically associated with one of these larger technology solution brokers. They simply refer and then they go away, right? So maybe someone that you know has relationships with end users, but they don't want to be actively involved with the sales dynamic. There's really no ongoing relationship, so you're not expecting them to renew or upsell the customer, and you typically only pay them once, and then they're not involved with the relationship going forward. Typically, it's a one-time payment upon cash receipt for the first invoice that you're providing with the customer. And again, most of these payments you're going to do in US dollars or in euros or whatever your local currency is, and not pay and fill. The referral partner is typically involved only in the initial agreement, and are you not paying them for any renewals down the road. There's no ongoing payments, and there's no expectation of any activities related interacting with you as the storage provider. An MSP or VAR is a technology reseller, and they often will offer that as part of their services stack. So they'll be offering many different services to customers, and they'll be rebilling and reselling your services as part of that sales motion. They may work through what's called a cloud distributor, which often looks like a technologies broker, but they're only there to provide resale of services. Again, they receive a discount in lieu of commissions, and they're selling their own brand to the end user, and they're billing the end user instead of you billing the end user. And this is historically a process that's more common with hardware and software resales. As the world is moving into as-a-service dynamics, more and more of these sales are moving into more of an agency model, as I've described before. This is more of a graphical representation of these various types of sales motion. Each has a goal of ultimately procuring end users for you, the service provider. On the left, you have the technology broker selling through multiple agents out there in the geography to get to end users. In the middle, you've got the service provider selling through and being rebranded by that systems integrator, MSP, or value-added reseller to get to their end users. And then the third motion here is really pretty obvious, where you've got direct sales that sell directly to end users. And assume that any referral programs are really a derivative of this tech broker model. It's just that the compensation's different, and then the ongoing expectations from a support of the customer are different. Again, 3 different distinct routes to market. A little bit more detail on this as far as billing and whatnot. Under the broker model, you've got the brand, your brand as the storage provider to the end user. You determine the pricing. You can, with Filecoin, as you know, you can charge 0, but again, we don't recommend that. You're billing the customer, and you're providing first-level customer support. You're paying out residuals as a percentage of that billing, and you may be paying up for what are called upfront spiffs, which I'm going to cover soon, which are upfront incentives to channel partners for engaging with you. The solution broker pays the agent that sells to the end user, and you often have what are called marketing development funds and training requirements, as I mentioned before, are pretty material there. With the resale model, it's the systems integrator or the VAR brand to the end user, and you're basically co-selling with them. They will determine the end user pricing, not you. You can work collaboratively with them on that, but they're the ones ultimately invoicing the customer and determining the billing. And they provide first-level customer support. And they will provide a discount. You will provide a discount to them and help them with the co-selling. There often is some marketing development fund requirements here, but it tends to be less than in the broker model. And then the direct end user model, again, you're providing your brand to the end user. You're determining the pricing. You're doing all the billing and determining determining the first level customer support. There's often minimal or no marketing development fund requirements. But again, there's a substantial cost up front with training a direct sales channel and staffing that up. That's the individual and material cost and the difference of a direct sales model versus an indirect sales model. There are various online resources as well as events to attend and learn about how to engage with channel partners. It's often difficult to find them. Where are they? How do you find out who they are? There's many regional and local events that are in your backyard that are very focused on education and are free to attend. So search those out. Technology service brokers are often have local events that are focused on verticals such as cloud, UCaaS, and security. Find out who those cloud team members are that focus on selling storage, and they may be having local events in your backyard that are often social events and educational events. These are great networking events to attend. In addition, leverage LinkedIn groups that are associated with channels or storage. There are many crypto events and groups as well to associate with. A couple of events and online resources available to agents, and to find them, channelfeatures.com is a great source for that. There's a lot of education on the site, and their event that they have twice a year is called channelpartnersconference.com, and that's a great event for networking and to attend and to see what the competition's doing, to also find channel partners to sell your services. CRN, which is computerresellernews.com, is where you often find value-added resellers. Those are the VARs and systems integrators that control vast amounts of storage resale and solutions of all types, voice and data solutions. And it's really a very strong ecosystem with a lot of learning and educational materials out there. And a couple of the LinkedIn groups I've noted, the Alliances and Channels Friends, 32,000 members. Storage Professionals have 76,000 members. Channel Futures, Cloud Hosting. There's a whole host of crypto native focus groups as well. And really, what you can do is sign up for these, and they push a lot of content your way to really learn what the competition's doing and what end users are looking for out there, and how to differentiate your services against those. There are many aspects of building and sustaining a vital and profitable indirect channel program. Partners must be recruited, they must be enabled, engaged with, and retained. So it's really an ongoing cycle. It never ends. The most important elements of a successful program, there's really two important elements. The number one is responsiveness. If you're slow to respond to requests or don't follow up proactively with partners, they will lose interest and work with those that can support them properly. Right. The number two advice is really to create ease of doing business. Right. It's vital to remove any friction, as much friction as possible, from all elements of working with channel partners. If interacting with a storage provider is too painful or requires material effort, you will lose that partner to a competitor. The following represent a good starting point to think through before launching a channel program. It's often really good to make sure that you really have pre-planned all these different elements before launching the program, because astute partners will quickly find out that you may not know what you're doing, or may not have a focused and complete channel program when you're approaching them. A summary of these real quickly, you got to make payments, right, to them. Typically, you're going to convert your revenues that are created from Phil into US dollars, a local fiat currency. That may evolve over time, and there's some crypto native partners that may want to be paid in Phil or even potentially Bitcoin. You have to understand the language and how to speak to enterprise customers, how to deal with service level agreements, how to deal with contracts, and as well as the channel participants. They're used to being spoken to in a certain way. Overcome their objections. They often will have a fear of crypto, service level agreements, and stability of you as a storage provider. What's your security? So think through how you answer these questions before you approach the channel partners. There's a lot of education of Web3 and blockchain, and provide training, but don't get too into the details. A lot of end users and customers and channel partners may not necessarily care about crypto economics all that much. They just want to understand, why is your service different? Why are you differentiated? You want to have criteria for selecting channel partners. You just don't want to sign up every partner that comes to you. You want to have rules of engagement. So if you have a direct sales channel and an indirect sales channel, how do they overlap? How do they compete with each other? What do you do when you have conflict, and how do you resolve those? You want to have product descriptions and pricing set up in advance. Partner compensation, you want to be fair and have both upfront compensation and residual commissions. You need to have contracts with partners and with end users. You want to have proper staff. It's very competitive out there to get proper staff that understand how to deal with channel partners. Ultimately, over time, you want to build up automation. So you've got partner relationship management tools, APIs into systems, a portal, a way of seeing commissions for channel partners, and have a business planning process so you understand what the mutual expectations of partners are. Two terms that are unique and linked with channel partners regarding compensation are marketing development funds, often called MDF, and sales performance incentive funds called SPIFs. So these are terms that partners are used to seeing. Marketing development funds are typically used where the storage provider pays the channel partner for items such as advertising, hosting events, or developing collateral. They may often be co-branded between the partner and the storage provider. The goal is to generate leads and awareness. SPIFs are paid up front and often vary by quarter. They are often paid upon the first payment by a customer. Note that venture capital is often used to fund this upfront money and may not make sense from a pure customer acquisition perspective, but have a goal of increasing market share during the early stages of growth from a technology company. Here are some examples of this from current Web 2 companies in the unified communication space, in contact center as a service space. And they're often paying, 10x, 6x monthly recurring charges, or you can see $100,000 for bringing a certain type of deal. Those numbers just don't make sense from an economic perspective, but they're being fueled by the venture capital as a way of garnering market share. You need to think of block rewards as really being used in a similar motion within the Filecoin ecosystem, and allows for incentives to be provided in order to attract customers and subsidize competitive pricing. Again, what you want to use it as a subsidy and not the sole revenue stream for yourself, because it's very important, and you can charge more. One way to explain block rewards, therefore, is really simply to explain that it's really like marketing development funds and SPIFs, because often channel partners are used to those terms, and when you talk to them in terms of that, it really resonates very well with them. Project Gravity is a form of SPIF that is currently available from Protocol Labs, and it's available for a referral of a verified customer data to the Filecoin ecosystem. If you have a sales partner that refers a customer to you under this program, it's most likely best to pay them a corresponding amount in US dollars or fiat currency, and have PL pay you as the referring partner through this program. This program expires at the end of March currently, and it pays 100 FIL for a 100 TIB customer today, and 500 FIL for a 1 PIB customer data set. Project Gravity said it must be communicated to potential channel participants. So this is just a form of SPIF, and it's nothing different than that. So direct sales, let's get on and talk about that. A great example of our largest customer, PiKNiK, is the Shoah Foundation, which is the archive for the Holocaust testimonials. There was no channel partner involved with this. We simply sold that ourselves, and the data set is over 8 PIB and will be replicated across other providers on the Filecoin ecosystem. This data had to be digitized from tape and then encrypted, as well as transported from Dallas to our data center in San Diego. These are examples of the value-added research, value-added services that PiKNiK provided to the customer, and were not supported directly by the Filecoin ecosystem. Again, block rewards allow for price subsidization, but should not be the only charges for customers. You can see from this chart, the prices vary greatly out there from your competitors, and can technically be profitable today to be offered free of charge, but there's material headroom, as you can see with the red line here, to charge materially more in fiat currency to the end user. And those will represent material savings to them, but also can enhance your margins. Note that the fees illustrated here do not show the material effect of egress fees. So AWS, Azure, other services charge a lot of money to get your data back, and customers often are not aware of that. There are no egress fees necessary within the Filecoin ecosystem, and so that's really a unique capability to emphasize with customers. So companies like Wasabi and Dropbox, for example, do not offer archive-specific storage levels, and they have a one-size-fits-all pricing models. So often customers are using them for archiving data when they really are hot forms of data, and that you can charge them materially less for that than what they're paying at someone like Backblaze or Wasabi. I want to touch on ecosystems and marketplaces quickly. As previously mentioned, these are a rapidly growing aspect of selling services to enterprise customers and must be invested in. These have global scale and are the fastest growing element of sales engagement today. The Filecoin ecosystem has its own capabilities that mirror the structure of mature online communities, but benefit the unique participants of the Filecoin ecosystem. So really what you need to do is create your own demand for your services, but you could also participate in these global ecosystems. You should not rely on them, but they should be able to augment what you're doing. This ecosystem is both electronic in nature as well as from direct communication between participants. Through this program with ESPA, you will have a little ecosystem of participants that you can share deals with and communicate between each other to share best practices. But do not rely completely and expect deals to flow through anonymous processes. Pick up the phone and establish rapport with others. Most major service providers today, such as AWS, Google, Oracle, and Microsoft, each have their own marketplaces where the goal is to facilitate commerce between participants. Ideally, end users that need service will also go to these marketplaces and find service providers. Estuary and Bidbot are Filecoin's equivalent of traditional online marketplaces. They don't necessarily provide details as to how to get in touch with other storage providers, but are more focused on allowing end users to find storage providers. This ESPA program will essentially operate as a form of marketplace as we want to encourage relationships between participants so we can all act together to bring more business to each other. Estuary and Bidbot are deal broker platforms on the Filecoin network. In general, these platforms represent a very small percentage of the overall data on the network, but they represent material promise for the future. Estuary makes storing data with Filecoin simpler by managing replication tasks and automating much of the workflow. Bidbot is a Filecoin network sidecar to bid on storage deal auctions. Again, these marketplaces participate in only a very small share of the total Filecoin network activity today. Only 2% of total Filecoin data was sealed through Estuary, for example. Estuary currently does not guarantee where user data ends up geographically on the network. Most of the deals transacted today are small compared to large data sets where enterprise customers will require knowing where their data is stored. Estuary is a great solution for developers and users who want a more accessible Filecoin interface. Users on Estuary can store and retrieve content quickly using IPFS. Use an IPFS API that adheres to the IPFS pinning services API specification. Store content in Filecoin with proposition receipts and successful deal receipts. And Estuary was developed by Application Research Group, which is a team that aims to bolster the mission of Protocol Labs by focusing on shipping tools that provide daily utility on the internet. Bidbot, which is another form of ecosystem out there, was developed by Textile, which is a developer of open source tools that helps users get the most out of the Filecoin network. Bidbot does not run on the same server as your storage provider's node, which enhances the ability to scale and enhances overall security. Many direct-to-auction end users that post deals on the service are looking for storage, already stored data, and are looking for more efficient ways to connect storage providers to their data. How does Bidbot work, right? So end users will upload files with metadata in an auction payload. Auction payload is published to a channel with storage providers seeking deals. Storage providers will submit bids to compete for the deal, and the winner is selected. All bidders and selection criteria are publicly available and visible to everybody. The final storage parameters and deals are agreed to by both parties, and the storage provider receives data and finalizes the deal on the Filecoin blockchain for everyone to see. That's it for me. Thank you for your time.